Hello everyone and welcome back to Gaming with Murel. Today we are playing Banished, recently released by Shining Rock Software, available on Steam. This is a cute little city builder strategy game. Harkens back to Dwarf Fortress. It's very similar to Dwarf Fortress, so if you are a DF player, give this a go for sure. So we're gonna start a new game. And as you can see here, we have the town name, which is randomly generated. You can add your own, but I'm just going to hit random until we hit one that I personally enjoy. These are particularly good. Millwoody, I like it. So down here you can put your map seed in if you're looking for something specific, or you can just choose here, trait type. We're going to leave pretty much everything the same, including the starting conditions. Now with easy, you start off with a large number of families and enough resources to live comfortably. Where medium, you start off with only 5 families, and you have enough food and stuff really to get you to the start of winter. And hard, you start with nothing. So we're gonna play on Millwoody. Start anew. Now, like I was saying, this is very similar to Dwarf Fortress in many respects. You have the city building portion of it. You need to designate to remove resources and things. And there are disasters. We did leave disasters on in the last menu. You can turn that off, and that'll actually create a SimCity type disaster: tornadoes, fires, plagues. So we're going to leave that on for this playthrough, but you can turn it off. But back to the Dwarf Fortress topic, it's not as unforgiving. Anytime the city really dies, 9 times out of 10 it's going to be your fault. A farmer died and he didn't replace them, and so now you don't have enough food for the winter, or a fire breaks out, which isn't really your fault, but kills half the town. It's like that in a lot of ways, but there are more room for mistakes, and just because of the complexity of the game, the first episode here is really just going to be about the basics, controls, taking a look around, and we'll lay the foundation for our new town. We're looking at a screenshot of a town one of the devs made, but the interesting thing about the start menu is it'll actually show a screenshot from whatever town you're working on, the last one to save. And another nice thing about this specifically is it has an autosave feature which doesn't interrupt the gameplay, and that's really good if the game crashes. It does crash occasionally, but anything, this isn't early access, new release, so you have to take that as you will. But where we're starting out now, first thing we did was pause the game. I used the spacebar hotkey to do so, but you can do it here, the little clock. And when it starts, we're actually going to put it up to 5x. And I'm going to do that just for this video. I really don't advise going 5x. Unless you're waiting a really long time for a stable city to build something. The only reason I'm doing that is the screen recording software does slow this game down a bit, so you may notice a bit of lag. But playing through normally, you shouldn't experience that even with, a low-end computer. It's actually quite a solid game. But now that it's paused, we're going to take a look at the map, and we're going to do that for a couple reasons. First of all, so we know where all the resources are, but secondly, so we know where we are. They always start at the middle, and we're close to the river, which is important. This deep river here is going to be your connection with traders, as well as resource food, fish, and that's really important for a starting town. Now, you can also fish in these lakes that we're looking at along the side, the 3 big lakes. However, you can't put a trading center in there, even like this one, where it connects to the main river. A trading post will not attract merchants. Nor down here, these little rivers, you won't get merchants in those either. So we're really going to make good use of this big river to our left. So very first thing we're going to do is actually build a fishing post somewhere along this bank, somewhere close to what's currently the center of town, because that is really where all of our things are at the moment. The storage barn, that's where they're going to put the food. We're going to clear an area for houses, so we want to stay centralized to this location. So what we'll do is we'll just slap it here on this bend. It looks like it should be straight enough for us to put the fishing dock in. So down here on your hotbar, the apple is your food resources. So we're going to select the fish for a fishing post, and we're going to rotate it with R and build it half in the water. And come on, don't fight with me. There. So now that we've laid it out, there's nothing there, but the square is darker. That's just to show that a building is slated to be there. And we're also going to tell them to dig some cut some trees, dig up some stone, and clear a space for some houses. And we do that by going into the little chopping wood. That's removal and destruction tools. And we're going to use that actually just to harvest wood. And that's the little tree icon. So we're going to do this, and they're just going to clear cut this whole area we've selected. And we're going to do the same with stone, because stone is a very valuable resource, as is iron. And the thing to remember with the stone and the iron is once you've dug them up off the top, they're not going to spawn. They are a finite resource. So try not to collect them all. The other option is to build both mines and quarries, which are much more effective at gathering stone, and that is a renewable source of stone. So now that we've done that, we're also going to need more food. So what we're going to do is we're going to build a gatherer's hut. We're going to place it somewhere with enough land to support it. And that's going to make a bit more sense here in a moment as I explain the gatherer's hut. The gatherer's hut itself needs a thick, dense forest. So the more forest there is, the better it is for the gatherer. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to pair that hopefully before the end of the year, with a forester's hut. Because forester's huts will actually go and plant trees as well as cut them down, and it keeps the forest nice and thick. So those two are really well together. We're also going to build a hunting cabin somewhere, probably along here too. Just for the sake of ease of access, we'll throw it up here. And that's the little deer icon under the food menu as well, and it's going to benefit from having forests as well, being close by the forester, just because the deer as well are a finite resource, and without wood or wooded areas, they'll die out, and it is actually possible to hunt them to extinction. So try not to overhunt in areas. So what we're going to do now is we have a couple projects started, and we're going to assign some professions. And you do that from the little cog icon, and it's a little shovel, hammer, axe, and wheat. That's assigned professions. They all start out as laborers, and you start off with 10. And as children grow up, they become general laborers, and they're the ones who are going to cut down the trees and do all that sort of thing, while our builders here, and we'll assign, let's assign 3. They're the ones who are actually going to build the everything. So we do need a few of those. So here's our little town. And we're going to use this tool. It's the increase priority tool. And it's going to tell our people what's the most important, which is a feature I actually just stumbled upon. And it's really useful. So we're going to unpause the game with space. Or you can go in here and do it. And we're going to watch them go. So first things first, they're going to gather up some tools from this barn. And as we can see in this window, we start with hide coats, iron tools, and potatoes. Now, that's what we start with because we're in medium. We also look out, we have some seeds if we want to build a crop or a farm field. We have at least one seed to choose from that we can grow. And with any luck, we'll also have something we can plant trees with and start orchards. But right now we're going to focus on the gathering more than the hunting or farming. Now, as you can see, they're going about their business. They're going to gather resources and pick away at the different jobs we've set for them. Now, the important thing is we do actually need to have somewhere for them to live before winter. As you can see, there's a bunch of little floating houses. Those are actually icons over our citizens' heads, showing that they're homeless. And if you're homeless during the winter, you die. You need a place to eat and sleep and be warm. So we're going to need to get a big housing solution here in a minute. But what we're looking at here, you can see that there's now a foundation laid for the dock, and that means that all of the resources have been brought there, and we're just waiting for them to build that. So our builder should make light work of that. We have 3 of them, and everyone else is just going to start clear cutting and clearing the land for us to start building. Now, as they do that, we are going to discuss trade here. Trade is vital if you want your town to expand. It's a way to bring in resources you don't have access to, and it can really give you a leg up. The trick with trading, though, is a merchant will not show up until you have a trading post built in the lake or river here, I should say, and have had a trader living there for at least a year. And the downside of that is you lose a laborer for a year, at least, and it's not guaranteed they'll show up after a year. I've heard it going as late as 4 or 5. So we have to think about that in the near future, but it's not our primary concern at the moment. And they are building the dock, as we can see, 54% complete. They're just going away at it. And we are starting to see the forest being removed. So our next project should be some housing. And we're actually going to build a boarding house over in this area that or we'll build it over here. They're still there on that. And this is a really important house to have, or solution to have, I should say, because when you get big enough and have a town hall, you can attract nomads, and they're essentially settlers. And sometimes you're not expecting it, and if you deny them, they'll bring less people will try next time. So if you have a boarding house, anyone who's homeless will move in there for the short term until you can build some houses, and it's a good way to house a lot of people quickly. So we're going to throw that up as soon as they're done the dock. We'll make that the next priority. Now, any seasoned DF player is going to know this feeling, sitting and waiting for something to be done, which unfortunately does come with the territory of these strategy builder games, but it's all part of the experience. And over the coming episodes, you're going to hear a lot along the lines of, and they will die in the winter, or you will die. It's because this game can be cruel. Your first couple cities, they're probably all going to die out the first year. You know, if you're lucky, you might survive your first couple of winters. You might scrape by, but eventually everyone's going to die. And really, learning from experience is the only way to get better at this game. So, we just put 2 farmers to work when I meant to put fishermen. Right there, that's a mistake that could have killed us come the winter. We really need people fishing now to bolster our potato stock, because that's not going to last very long. And now that that is finished, we're going to make our boarding house the priority task, because we really want that finished. There we go. So down here, I don't think I mentioned this, it's the house icon. And in here you can build log houses, which is what we'll be building once the bulk of our building has finished and we can spare some time and resources for proper housing. Then you have stone houses. They're less likely to burn down and they use less firewood in the winter to keep warm. However, they are very resource expensive. So it's good to ignore them until you have a surplus of stone and labor. So you're really going to want to get a couple mega projects out of the way first. And then this third one was the boarding house, and that's just a big log house. And while they're digging away, we'll look at some more of the hotkeys down here. This one is kind of infrastructure and travel. In here you can build bridges, you can build tunnels through mountains, and then you have 2 types of road here. The dirt road gives a moderate boost in travel speed, and the stone gives a much bigger boost but uses 1 stone, where the dirt doesn't use anything. And if we go in here, there's actually a pathing tool. If I can find it, I've never used it before. Yeah, paths, and it'll show you right there where everyone goes. So that's a good way to really keep an eye on traffic and make sure that you have roads where you need them. So down here we see the boarding house has its foundation laid, and we're just waiting for them to build that. And then we'll let them build the gatherers and hunters' respective cabins. The benefit of this is the game is really complex in a lot of ways, and the citizens' health depends on having a variety of food, which makes sense, really. So you really want to diversify the food coming in, a mix of fish and venison from the deer, roots, and onions and things found by the gatherers. It's going to lead to a more balanced lifestyle and keep your people alive longer. And that's important because we're not going to attract nomads for a while. So we really need our people to have babies to keep growing the population and replacing those that are dying of old age, because they will die very shortly. Every year that passes, I think they age between 4 and 5 times. I've heard a few different people claim a few different things. So each year is essentially worth half a decade to these people. So you really do have to keep an eye on your population, because if too many people start dying, you won't be able to cover all the jobs, and it will just be a slow death. And everyone's working away, which is exciting. Sometimes you'll find the builders don't feel like they want to build what you've told them to, and that can be very frustrating. And they're clear cutting up there, so we are making progress. And you see our potato stock here, it started at 1800, we're down to 1621. Yes, that's a 2. So that will deplete really quickly, so we do need a way to feed our people. But with any luck, this boarding house won't take too much longer, and we'll finally be able to have 3 different food resources coming in. Another good thing about the hunting cabin is, too, that it will bring in leather, which is important to reclothe your citizens. Both clothes and tools eventually will break down and wear away and need to be replaced. So leather can be used for that. It's also a very valuable trade commodity on its own. And if we get really lucky, we'll have a trader that's going to bring us some sheep. That'll be another good resource we can harvest, both for meat, I believe, and wool, which we can then use to make warm coats and other things. But now it is just a bit of a waiting game. We're going to watch them slowly clear away all the resources, and we'll take advantage of that. Now, one suggestion I do have is try to have a woodcutters really before your first winter. You do start with a reserve of firewood, 200, but that's not really going to be enough to get you through your first winter. If you run out, you may not lose anyone, but there is a chance you might. So it's always just better safe than sorry. The woodcutters is down in the resource collection. Or resource production, I should say. And it's the little axe. And I honestly suggest just place it right next to your stockpile. It's going to save time, because they have to go to and from it, and it's close enough to the boarding house as well that they don't have very far to travel for either food or wood. And keeping with that logic, we're actually going to try and place most of our houses right along here, really. Again, nice and close to the storage barn. But for now, we are just sitting and waiting. We see here the building is coming together. They have the floor and the walls up. And they're just going to go Age of Empires that building up by sawing on some stones for a day. Now that we actually have quite a bit of wood being cleared out, I'm going to assign another builder just to make things go a little faster. I think we can spare the manpower, to be honest. And it looks like someone, or a couple children actually aged up while we were waiting. So we started with a few kids, they're now adults, and they just dropped, like I said earlier, into that labor pool. So we should be able to offset those extra builders, which will give us a nice advantage now of having the buildings be built quite quickly. And it looks like one of the builders is even working on the woodcutter now, which is excellent. And the boarding house is almost complete. So with any luck, we should be able to get through this first winter with no casualties. So far in my series, I've been able to survive the first episode without dying, so I'd like to make that a thing. And voila, building house or the boarding house is complete, and quite a few people anyway should have a home. So just for the sake of expedience, we're going to make this woodcutters a priority as well, just to give us a bit of a leg up. And I'm going to throw a few more people in as fisher people, just so we can ensure that there is a little bit of a buffer zone for food. Starvation can kill your city quite easily. But until that happens, we'll just keep plugging away at this. And again, we're making quite good time with the woodcutter. So, with any luck, we should have some people hunting and gathering plants as well by the end of this season. And unless I'm mistaken, and if I am, feel free to correct me down in the comments. I love to learn things. The only way you can really tell how late in the season you are is once you've built a town hall. Town hall unlocks a lot of records, graphs, population statistics. It's really useful. And you won't attract any nomads until you have a town hall. So that is relatively important in a little bit. But until then, we're just going to keep plugging away. And now that they're almost on the woodcutter, I am actually going to assign someone to be the woodcutter. So we're just going to assign one person. And once the woodcutter's hut here is finished, they'll go straight to work. And while we're in the profession screen, we're just going to discuss a couple things in here. We're going to go back to the builders. See, we have 5 builders assigned out of a possible 6. This is the total jobs available. So now that the woodcutter's done, it's gone from 0 to 1. So we have enough jobs for 1 woodcutter. And we have enough jobs for 4 fishermen. And right next to that is the select and cycle button. So you can go through each one in that profession and see exactly what they're working on. All of our builders here are picking up resources, so they're probably, since they're up this way, working on the hunter's cabins or the gatherer's hut. This one specifically looks like she's going to the gatherer's cabin, so we should be able to have at least 1 gatherer here before winter falls, which is what we're aiming for here, is just enough food to get through to winter, or get through the winter. And what I did here, and I'll exit follow mode just so I can show you and explain it, is I cycled through, opened up her window here, and follow right there. But this will also show you how healthy they are, how happy they are, their clothing, their tool, what their job is, whether they have an education, and as well what they're doing. So we're just going to go back to follow, and we're going to follow her around for a little bit, keep an eye on the builders, and just keep a close eye on the construction of our town. that is actually pretty boring, so let's find something else to do. Now, one thing I do aim to do next spring is start an orchard, and that's going to benefit us in a couple ways. It's going to give us another variety of food. It's going to be a regular source of food, very reliable. However, it takes a couple years to get fully grown trees, so that can really set a small city back, especially in the early stages, because you're losing someone important that you could be putting to something more productive on a project that won't show any returns for a couple of years. But the benefit of that is, along with the variety of food, is it will give you something to make alcohol out of once you build a tavern. So that will benefit us greatly. And everyone's still plugging away. I'm not going to add any more buildings until the hunters and gatherers stations are finished. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to pause the video, and we're going to come back maybe end of winter, just so we can, or start of winter maybe, just so we can get an eye on what's happening. And we'll do that maybe in the next episode. Yeah, so we'll end it here for this time. When we come back, we'll take a look at how our town is grown and pick out some mega projects we can work on for the next couple of episodes. So we're going to pause that, and I'm going to say goodbye. Thanks all for watching, and I'll see you next time.